You know that feeling when you check your bank account and there's actually money in it? Like, not just I can afford groceries this week money, but actual money? Yeah, I'm talking about having five figures sitting there. And here's the weird part. You start making completely different decisions. Not because someone told you to, not because you read some personal finance book, but because something fundamentally shifted in how your brain processes risk, opportunity, and what's actually possible in your life. I had $5,200 in my savings account for the first time when I was 26, and I remember looking at that number thinking, okay, what now? And then something clicked. I stopped checking prices at the grocery store, not because I was being reckless, but because I genuinely didn't need to anymore. That shift, that's what we're talking about today. My name is Rayhan, and I spend way too much time thinking about the exact dollar amount where people's financial behavior completely transforms. If you're someone who's been grinding away trying to save money, feeling like you're never making progress, or you've actually hit that first major savings milestone, and you're wondering why everything feels different now, make sure to hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Here's the thing. There's actual research on this. Economists at the Federal Reserve did a study in 2019 looking at savings behavior across different income brackets, and they found something fascinating. There's a psychological threshold that happens somewhere between $40,000 and $60,000 in liquid savings where people's financial decision-making fundamentally changes. Not gradually, not incrementally, it's almost like flipping a switch. Below that number, you're operating in what they call scarcity mode. Your brain is constantly running this background calculation. Can I afford this? What if something goes wrong? What if I lose my job? Above that number, your brain shifts into what I call opportunity mode. Same person, same values, completely different operating system. And look, I know what you're thinking. $50,000? I'm trying to figure out how to save $500. Stay with me here, because understanding what happens at that threshold is actually going to help you get there faster. The psychology matters. The math behind the magic number. Let me break down why $50,000 specifically. It's not arbitrary, and it's not just because it's a nice round number that sounds impressive. The average American household faces about $400 in unexpected expenses every single month. Car repairs, medical bills, your phone dies, your kid needs something for school, there's always something. The Federal Reserve found that 40% of Americans couldn't cover a $400 emergency expense without borrowing money or selling something. That's how tight most people are living. Now let's say you lose your job. The typical job search takes about 4 to 6 months. If you're spending $3,000 a month on rent, food, insurance, and basic expenses, which is conservative for most of the country, you need $18,000 to $24,000 just to survive that job loss without panic. But here's where it gets really interesting. You don't just need survival money. You need opportunity money. That's the cash that lets you say no to a bad job offer. That's the money that lets you negotiate salary because you're not desperate. That's the buffer that lets you invest in yourself, take a course, start a side business, relocate for a better opportunity. When you hit $50,000, you've got about a year of basic expenses covered, plus enough cushion to actually make strategic moves. Your brain knows this, and once your brain knows this, everything changes. Here's what most people don't realize about this threshold. It's not just that you feel safer. It's that your entire risk-reward calculation system gets rewired. I talked to a neuroscientist at UCLA, Dr. Sarah Chen. She studies financial decision-making, and she explained it like this. When you're operating in scarcity mode, your amygdala, the fear center of your brain, is hyperactive. Every financial decision triggers a threat response. Your brain literally processes spending money the same way it processes physical danger. But when you cross that savings threshold, your prefrontal cortex, the rational planning part of your brain, takes over. You can actually think long-term. You can evaluate opportunities instead of just avoiding threats. Here's a concrete example. Let's say someone offers you a job that pays $10,000 less per year, but has way better growth potential, better benefits, better work-life balance. If you've got $3,000 in savings, your brain screams no, because the immediate loss feels like a threat to survival.
If you've got $50,000 in savings, you can actually run the math on whether that trade-off makes sense. Same opportunity, completely different decision. Now, you might be thinking, okay, but if I have more money, won't I just spend more? And this is where people get it completely wrong. Here's the paradox. Most people think that having more money makes you spend more, but the data shows the opposite. A study from the Journal of Consumer Research tracked spending habits across different savings levels, and they found that people with savings between $50,000 and $100,000 actually have lower discretionary spending as a percentage of income than people with $5,000 to $10,000 in savings. Why? Because when you have no savings, every purchase is emotionally charged. You're either depriving yourself, which builds up pressure, or you're stress spending to cope with financial anxiety. It's feast or famine. You'll go 3 weeks eating rice and beans and then drop $200 on a night out because you can't take it anymore. But when you have that cushion, spending becomes boring. I know that sounds weird, but it's true. You stop getting that dopamine hit from buying things because you're not using purchases to medicate financial anxiety. You can afford the thing, so buying it isn't exciting anymore. And paradoxically, you end up spending less. I watched this happen with my own behavior. When I had $8,000 in savings, I was constantly buying little things, coffee, apps, random stuff on Amazon, because each purchase felt small and I was trying to make myself feel better about my financial situation. When I hit $50,000, I stopped. Not because I was being more disciplined, but because I didn't need those little hits anymore. This is where it gets really interesting. Once you have significant savings, you start seeing money completely differently. You start thinking in terms of opportunity cost, but not in that theoretical economics textbook way, in a visceral, emotional way. Let me give you an example. Say you're thinking about buying a $40,000 car. When you have $10,000 in savings, you think, can I afford the monthly payment? That's it. That's the whole calculation. When you have $50,000 in savings, you think, okay, if I spend $40,000 on this car, that's $40,000 that won't be growing. If I invest that money and it returns 8% annually, that's $3,200 per year. Over 10 years with compound growth, that's nearly $60,000. So this car is actually costing me $100,000 in future wealth. Same car, same purchase, completely different mental framework. And look, I'm not saying you should never buy anything. I'm saying that your brain naturally starts making these calculations when you have enough savings that future wealth becomes tangible, not theoretical. Poor you thinks about today, wealthy you thinks about 10 years from now. And the weird thing is, you don't become wealthy and then start thinking long term. You start thinking long term and then you become wealthy. Here's something nobody talks about. Your relationships change when you hit this savings level. And I don't just mean that people treat you differently, though they do. I mean your own behavior in relationships fundamentally shifts. When you're broke, your financial decisions are entangled with everyone around you. You can't lend your friend money. You have to say no to social events. You're financially dependent on family, on your employer, on your partner. And that dependence shapes every interaction, even when you don't realize it. After $50,000 in savings, you have something most people never experience: financial independence in your relationships. You can help family without putting yourself at risk. You can leave a toxic work environment. You can stay in a relationship because you want to, not because you need to. A financial therapist I spoke with, this guy, Brad Klontz, he's been researching this for 20 years, told me that the number one predictor of healthy relationships isn't communication or compatibility, it's financial security. Because when you're not operating from a place of financial fear, you can actually be present with people. You're not keeping score. You're not resentful. You're not making decisions based on who's paying for what. I saw this in my own life. Before I had savings, every dinner with friends was this mental calculation of, can I afford to split this bill? After I had savings, I just stopped caring, and my relationships got better. Not because I was spending more, I wasn't, but because I wasn't anxious about it. Look, here's the thing about having $50,000 in savings. It doesn't just change how you spend money, it changes how you earn money. There's data from Georgetown University showing that people with 6 months of expenses saved earn, on average, 23% more within 3 years than people without that cushion. Not because they're smarter or work harder, but because they can take risks, they can negotiate, they can say no. When you walk into a salary negotiation with $50,000 in the bank, you have leverage. Not fake leverage, real leverage. You can walk away. Your potential employer doesn't know you have that money, but they can sense that you're not desperate. And that changes the entire dynamic. Same thing with entrepreneurship. Most businesses fail not because the idea was bad, but because the founder ran out of runway. They had to take a client they shouldn't have taken, or they had to go back to a job before the business gained traction. When you have $50,000 in savings, you can give yourself a real shot. You can say no to bad clients. You can focus on building something that actually works instead of just scrambling for cash. This is the compound effect I'm talking about. Having savings makes you more confident, which makes you earn more, which makes you save more, which makes you more confident. It's a flywheel, but you have to get it spinning first. Now, I've got to be honest with you about something. There's a trap that happens right around this level, and I've seen it destroy people's financial progress. You hit $50,000 and your brain goes, okay, I made it. I'm financially secure now. And you stop. You coast. You increase your spending because you feel wealthy. Meanwhile, $50,000 today is worth $37,000 in 10 years with 3% inflation. Your financial security is quietly eroding. Or worse, you get overconfident. You've proven you can save, so you start taking risks you're not actually prepared for. You invest in your cousin's startup. You buy a rental property in a market you don't understand. You think, I've got $50,000, I can afford to lose some of it. And suddenly, you're back at $20,000, wondering what happened. Here's what most people don't realize. $50,000 is not the finish line. It's the starting line. It's the point where you've bought yourself the freedom to build actual wealth. But you have to keep going. The difference between someone with $50,000 in savings and someone with $500,000 isn't that one is 10 times more disciplined. It's that one understood that the first $50,000 gives you the platform to build the next $450,000. Okay, so how do you actually get there? Because everything I've said so far is useless if you're sitting at $3,000 in savings thinking, cool story, Nick, not helpful. Here's the brutal truth. The path to $50,000 isn't about budgeting apps or cutting out lattes. Those things might save you $1,000 a year. You need to save $10,000 to $15,000 a year to hit this goal in 3 to 5 years. That requires two things: earning more and making structural changes to your expenses. First, earning more. If you're making $40,000 a year, you physically cannot save $15,000 a year without living in your car. You need to get to $60,000 or $70,000 minimum. That means switching jobs, getting a certification, starting a side business, relocating to a higher paying market. You can't cut your way to wealth. You have to earn your way there. Second, structural changes. I'm not talking about meal prepping or negotiating your cable bill. I'm talking about living with roommates instead of solo, driving a $5,000 car instead of a $25,000 car, staying in a lower cost of living area for a few more years. These are decisions that save you $500 to $1,000 a month, not $50. The people who hit $50,000 in savings in their 20s or early 30s, they made one or two big, uncomfortable decisions that compounded. They didn't make 100 tiny sacrifices. Let's get specific about timelines, because I think this is where people give up. They think, oh, it's going to take me 20 years to save $50,000, and they never start. Here's the reality. If you can save $1,000 per month, which is aggressive but doable if you're making $60,000 to $70,000 and living below your means, you'll hit $50,000 in about 4 years. Not 20 years, 4 years. If you can save $1,500 a month, you're there in 3 years. And here's the thing. The first $20,000 takes twice as long as the last $20,000. Because as you go, you're getting raises, you're getting better at managing money, you're earning interest, you're building momentum. I hit my first $10,000 in about 18 months. My second $10,000 took 9 months. My third $10,000 took 7 months. Same income, but I'd optimized my life. I wasn't making stupid financial decisions anymore, and the compound effect was kicking in. The point is, this is not some abstract, decades-long journey. This is a 3 to 5 year sprint if you commit to it. And those years are going to pass anyway. You can get to 2030 with $50,000 in the bank, or you can get to 2030 still living paycheck to paycheck. Your choice. All right, so what do you do now? So here's what you do. Stop thinking about $50,000 as this impossible mountain. Start thinking about it as 12 months times 4 years. Can you save $1,000 in the next 30 days? If yes, do that. And then do it again next month and the month after that. Here are the specific steps. 1. Calculate your actual monthly expenses. Not what you think you spend, what you actually spend. Track every dollar for 1 month. This isn't about judgment, this is about data. 2. Identify your 3 biggest expenses. For most people, it's housing, transportation, and food. Those are the only 3 that matter. Ignore everything else for now. 3. Figure out how to cut one of those big 3 by 20 to 30%. Move to a cheaper place, get a roommate, sell your car and buy something cheaper. Meal prep on Sundays. Pick one. 4. Increase your income by 10 to 20% in the next 12 months. Apply to new jobs, ask for a raise, start a side hustle, whatever works for your situation. 5. Automate your savings. Set up a transfer on payday before you can think about it. If you're relying on willpower, you've already lost. And here's the key. Accept that this is going to be uncomfortable. You're going to miss out on things. You're going to feel behind your peers. You're going to question whether it's worth it. But I promise you, the day you check your account and see $50,000 sitting there, everything changes. You'll stop operating from fear. You'll start operating from possibility. And that shift is worth every sacrifice you made to get there. Look, I'm not here to tell you that money solves all your problems. It doesn't. But I am here to tell you that having $50,000 in savings solves a very specific problem. It takes financial survival off the table so you can focus on actually building a life you want. Right now, if you're living paycheck to paycheck, you're not really living. You're just surviving and hoping nothing goes wrong. That's not your fault. The system is designed to keep you there. But it is your responsibility to get out. You've got one life, and spending that life anxious about money, trapped in jobs you hate, unable to take opportunities because you're broke, that's not the move. Get to $50,000, then get to $100,000, then keep going. Your brain will change, your life will change, and you'll look back at this moment and think, why didn't I start sooner? All right, that's it for this video. If this helped you see money differently, hit that subscribe button, drop a comment and let me know where you are in your savings journey. I read every single one, and I'll see you in the next video.